Welcome everyone to the podcast. Here we have Ishi Raghuvanshi, and she is a content creator, entrepreneur, and also an online activist in some sense. I'm sorry I'm putting you into all these boxes,
It's
but
okay. I'm
yeah.
accepting of all labels. It's fine.
Let's hear it from Ishi herself. Ishi, how do you see yourself as an individual, and how do you represent yourself in terms of the social branding, as people will say, or personal branding? But how do you see
I like
yourself?
the word social branding. That's more appropriate. Got it.
Yes. So Ishi, how would you explain yourself as an individual? Why you are doing what you are doing, and also what is it that you care about? What is it that you are trying to share with the world? I have seen your content. I've also gone through your fashion, initiatives, and you're trying to design. You are interested in design. You're also showing up your creativity, and there is a insightful side of you where you are sharing about, most importantly, not only the feminine, I would say, but your understanding of how a woman should exist, within herself, maybe. So I'd just like to hear it from yourself, how do you see all of these things plays inside your own mind? Like, how do you perceive and how do you present yourself?
Okay. I do a lot of work online. That's how people know me. Initially, I started as something to do with fashion. I really love photography. I myself had a lot of cameras, etc. growing up. My father actually really supported me with that particular side of me, and then it transformed into fashion as well. Then Instagram at that time, which was I think 5 years back, is when I started. It was still a little same place than it is today. So I got a lot of love from people uh, with respect to fashion. Then I discovered deep within myself whys are always there. So then one why was also there with me, that why I am doing this, and what is the reason for me to be attracted so much towards the fashion side of my creativity.
Mhm.
Then uh, nothing arose in me which told me to change it. I just got more connected to it as I kept on doing what I do. And then I also discovered um, something which people would say in social branding terms as speaking, or connecting with people, or trying to express, or trying to individualize, etc. We
Mhm.
can call it whatever we can call it, but I really like to drive myself as well as drive other people to close to their true nature as beings, as who we are.
Mhm.
Barely anybody knows,
Yeah.
including myself. So
Now, obviously, we all try to think that we know, but it's like an endless universe of pondering upon things. So
yes,
we
I
cannot, yeah.
so I started to discover that through speaking as well, and here I am speaking to you as well, and people seem to love what I speak about. A lot of people also hate what I speak, but that
Mhm.
is not my point of bother. It is more about whatever I discover about myself as a woman. That is why you find me speaking more on femininity than
Mhm.
any other thing.
Mhm.
And then what I find about myself, just as a human, trying to get close to who she is as a human, close to my own nature, especially in a world where we are often, encouraged to be driven away from our true nature. We are that's celebrated, that's rewarded. So, but still, it doesn't make people happy, doesn't make people belonged, doesn't walk people home.
Mhm.
So my whole can call it agenda, can call it social branding. I like that word now. Is to encourage people, as well as meanwhile myself as well, to come close to who we are as individuals, come
Mhm.
back home.
Okay, so now you told like, speaking, right? So in the process of speaking, we discover ourselves in some way. Like I have seen that with myself also, and even I have seen many of my friends who are content creators. So through the process of speaking and expressing ourselves, we tend to unfold so many things about ourselves which it did not knew, or which we were not aware of, that this part of me also can be unfolded, right? So like how you landed into, assuming like you landed into all of these things, but how that unfolding happens, do you decide the pace of it or you just let it flow? Or like how you were trying to unfold about everything about yourself? Yeah.
Every single day, whenever I think that something is going to happen today or this is going to happen, like how we all think that we all have desires, or I should say, pre-assumed notions of how things are going to go in our lives, right? And it comes down to day, it comes down to moment.
Mhm.
So, as everyone, I also used to do that. And by used to, I mean very recently, I used to do that. As in, like, I used to plan my days and I used to plan this and I used to plan that, and nothing again goes according to the plan. And then I used to be upset about it a little bit. Something used to go to according to plan. I used to be a little happy about it, etc. But then I I saw one day the pattern of it all, and I discovered that this is something actually which I am causing to myself. There's
Mhm.
nobody trying to. There's no master behind me, with a whoop in his hand and trying to tell me, you need to do this and you need to do that. It is me. I am the person who is walking, and I am the person who is with the chadi behind me, trying to get to works, etc. So then I thought that, okay, if I have if here is where I am, where I am inflicting suffering upon myself, then I should go the other way. I should stop doing anything. I tried that as well. That also doesn't work. Because that is actually kranti. That is actually anti. Like it's still, I'm doing something. I'm trying to move
Yeah,
anti.
true.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm trying to move anti something. Still, I'm trying to prove something to myself. So that master is still behind me, telling me that, oh, if you're not doing what you were doing all this time, then you must do something which is opposite to that, so that you can justify in your own mind that
exactly.
whatever you were doing was wrong, and now you're doing something which is very right. This all just one day just came down like a landslide comes down a mountain, and I was crying straight away for weeks, I think.
Mhm.
My eyes are still swollen because of that.
Mhm.
um, and I couldn't it was just, and I was deliberately trying to attach meanings to my cry. I
Mhm.
was trying to say that, okay, it is, I'm crying because this happened, I'm crying because this is happening, that is happening. Then
But there is no
eventually I came,
reason.
yes, and then I came to a point where I was like, the whole time I've been just going against my own nature. The whole time I've been doing things which did not come from a sense
Within.
of enjoyment and being, but it came from trying to prove something, trying to do something, trying to get an outcome, trying to go somewhere. None of these things are right or wrong. It is just the place it came from was extremely conditioned, and this is a very, very, very deep conditioning I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Then I just went silent for a long time. Even my family was very scared. They were like, why are you not speaking, what happened to you, etc. And I was just smiling. I had no reason. I was like, there is nothing to say. What do you want me to say? But that doesn't mean I wasn't doing, I was doing my day to day. I was doing my photo shoots, I was talking to people, I was doing my work, etc. But there was this silence inside me, which is
This
so,
thing,
yeah, it
yes.
is so, it's like honey. It feels like, and it comes and goes and comes, and like, it's still, it is not an experience which is like very,
Mhm.
very extremely permanent in my life. But I'm also not trying to chase it,
Okay.
because earlier I used to be like, I used to get very anxious. Okay, why is it coming and going? I want this sweetness which I am feeling, regardless of whatever I'm doing. I'm still feeling very sweet. I want this, and then my mind started to doubt it, that you are just hallucinating, or this is something, very weird experience happening to you, etc. But that then I caught my mind into it, that this is my mind trying to, you know uh,
Mhm.
justify this experience again. Then I used
This
to get anxious about, like, what if I lose it, what if I lose it, what if I then I caught myself again that this is again my mind, mind trying to um, again get me anxious,
get some
get me
kind
to
of a
old
picture out
patterns.
of it. Yeah, some kind of a picture out of the experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, so Sadhguru puts it very beautifully. He says that you can scream in silence, you can dance in silence, you can work in silence, you can do anything in silence. That kind of silence should become within you. And
Yes.
also it says a lot of about silence.
Yes. So after I experienced silence in my life for the first time, and the silence that I'm talking about is not just the mouth silence. It is an it's a being. I don't
Exactly.
know how to put it into words, because I'm trying to, but then every word that I speak, I feel I'm lying, and I feel like I'm doing injustice to it, because it just, I can't speak that
Exactly.
silence. So then, because I used to live in Pune before this,
Mhm.
uh, and meanwhile, everything in my life was falling apart. Like, it was just not really something that that was going very well. But I was neither I was bothered about it, neither I was being like, "Arey sab theek ho jayega life mein," and all that about it. I was just enjoying it,
Mhm.
because there was nothing else to do, and it came, and it used to come and used to go, and then it used to come and then used to go. But every time that experience used to come in my life of that silence, it used to be much more deep, and much more like more sweet. It got sweet and sweet and more sweet and more sweet, because I didn't resist it, and I didn't like put my mind into it. I always
Mhm.
used to tell my mind that, just go to rest, you don't need to worry about this. We'll play when our time comes, when we have to do business, or we have to do, worldly things, or we have to decide what to eat. So then I used to live in Pune, and my favorite restaurant in Pune is Sante, which is right in front of Osho Ashram. And I
Okay.
was sitting there one day, and I was experiencing this sweetness. And I was sitting alone. I used to go there alone, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. And I just looked like, I always used to look at Osho Ashram, and I used to be like, this man has done a great job, because I used to listen to his lectures. But that
Mhm.
was just a listening experience, okay, yeah, what he's saying is right about ego, about this, that. But when I looked at his ashram, I was like, you know what? I should listen to one of his lectures again. Maybe I'll get something which I missed before.
Mhm.
Then I went to that, and I always carry my laptop with me. So I went to that cafe, and I started to listen to one of his lectures about Man Ka Khel or something in Hindi, because I always appreciate his lectures in Hindi. It's
Hindi voice is very soothing.
yes, like his vocabulary and the knowledge he has and the stories he tell is
Oh,
just,
his
I don't
English
know.
storytelling I have listened while there was a time I used to listen while I going to sleep. Osho
Hmm.
used to be playing, and he delivers the words in such depth and the silence, and
He's
that is
so
like that.
still when he's even speaking, that you can, if you have also, even for a moment, if you have experienced that stillness, you crave like that. You just are like, this man has, his being is that stillness. So then the amount of respect and the amount of love that I had for Osho after what I had experienced, and then after listening to his lectures, each and every word made me like cry tears of joy. you know.
Mhm.
And the lady in the restaurant is my friend, so she came to me and she's like, why are you crying, what happened to you, etc. I'm like, I'm very happy, that's why. And I was chatting with her for a while and then I went home. um, After that, my experience with Osho has been very different than anything I've ever
Do you
any.
do any kind of like Osho had practices, but do you like, in terms of are you following his, like he does not have a fixed method, right? He says you just be and you try to bring awareness in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
But apart from that, do you and do any kind of, methods or tools or something like that? Have you explored?
No, I've never, I've never sat down to meditate. I've never done any dancing. I am a dancer, but not
Mhm.
like as a meditative experience. I've never done any siddhi kriya or this kriya or that kriya. Of course, no offense to people who do that,
Mhm.
but I believe so many people go into such meditative practices and kriyas thinking that they will reach somewhere with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But few people who have actually done those kriyas for who they are, like in their true, authentic um, use, I
Mhm.
think would discover that actually this was a tool to just fool your mind into getting little quiet, which you can do even without any kriya.
Mhm.
That is the experience that I'm talking about.
Exactly. Oh, there are
You
different
can,
ways actually. The Krishnamurti's way is just of the thought, and Osho's ways of silence. Someone has a Kriya way. Someone can use
I
creativity as a.
discovered Osho has no way actually. I discovered that he said that whatever way you like, I'm telling you where you're gonna reach.
According to the individual, I think,
Yeah.
uh, okay, let's we'll come to the spirituality part, but I think one thing people would really like to understand from you is the creativity part, which is very evident in terms of the design that you do, in terms of design thinking, or what kind of design principles you might be thinking, how to portray a woman in terms of her clothing. So what is your experience of creativity, and like, do you see it creativity as a feminine pursuit, or like what kind of a visualization you use, so how it works within in your thinking?
See, creativity, how we are taught to pursue creativity in this materialistic, capitalistic world that we have today.
Mhm.
It is almost like, you know, having a seed and putting it in petroleum and expecting it to grow. It's like that, you know. But
Mhm.
how we are taught to pursue creativity is that the more creative you are, the closer you will be to truth, the closer you will be to the actuality of life, etc. But if you actually look at the actual creative people in the world, and if you really think about where creativity stems from, is actually reverse. And in my experience also, it is reverse. Creativity is inspired by truth, because truth is just, it is what it is. Creativity stems
Mhm.
out of truth in the sense that there are so many ways to speak the truth. There are so many ways to speak the sun rises from the east.
Mhm.
So many languages we can speak in.
Mhm.
So many riddles we can speak in. So many poems generate from it, right? But the truth of the matter is the sun rises from the east.
Yes.
So this is what creativity is, in my opinion. It stems out of something which is the truth. So many people miss out this whole thing, especially in a very rudimentary example would be our regular influencers. They think they are creative if they put a picture online. But um I mean, if you want to live that way, sure, fine, but you'll never know what real creativity is. It
So
is.
essentially, I understand what perspective you're talking about from the being when it arises and a person is naturally at ease within himself and completely at ease, there stems out his inner traits in the form of art, culture, science, whether he be speaking or she be doing anything. Like, it stems from that inner space, right? But let us say we look at more on the objective part. You're designing let us say you're designing a garment or you're designing something. So it is like there is obviously a set of information based on which you work, right? So so where did all this design knowledge, or is it like you went to some design school, and how this entire design things? Yeah.
No, I never went to any design school.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have any degree in fashion, nor do I know designing, but I do have my own brand, which we are working on. And that serves for making clothes for women, for office going women, because I figured that there is no brand in the world who is just doing office wear. There are
Mm-hmm.
brands who do office wear, but there's no dedicated brand who is solving problems related to women and their office wear needs.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is that mm, it has to come down to the purpose of what was the purpose of me starting the brand. Every single collection or every single design, every single meeting that we have as a team, it comes down to that purpose first, because
Mm-hmm.
that would be the guiding principle,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise all our minds would go crazy and we'll talk about all the things and then it would just be a mess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so to streamline and to make sure that we stick to what we actually originally wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So our purpose is to make um, women, give them an option for office wear where they don't have to dress rigid, they don't have to dress like a man, they don't
Mm-hmm.
have to to be like to dress boring, etc. Because if you really look at the nature of a woman, and actually the whole brand is inspired by that. Even if you look at the designs, it's colorful, it is fun, it is comfortable, it is to enhance her natural curves, to give
Mm-hmm.
it a hug. So all this you don't see in corporate environments, because in corporate environments we have introduced women.
It has
Haven't
become
introduced,
completely masculine, like the
yeah, we
dressing.
haven't introduced feminine essence there. Then
Mm.
what is the point? It is
Okay.
just the surface level, intrusion of whatever they are doing. So I thought, why not contribute to this particular way of future
Mm.
as humans through a brand. And I discussed it with my team and they really loved the idea, and I made sure that I discussed it with them at depth, because otherwise they'll think that this is just another brand idea, which is a conscious brand, and etc. and all that. uh, they liked it and then we worked towards it. So that guiding principle is very important, and we make sure we like stick to it.
So your vision is like, so I got your vision now, like in terms of, let us say, masculine is there in women's clothing. That I absolutely agree, because everywhere you go, corporates, you'll see women wearing suits and, sure, or that is the most common thing. And there's another side of design which women are comfortable in India. I'm not saying about outside of India mostly, but the traditional wear, right?
Saris,
Salwar,
yeah.
saris, salwars,
Yeah, we have
kurti.
kurtas and saris as well.
Okay. So what do you think about Indian, like, Indian women's clothing? Like, are you passionate about that side of, aesthetics of Indian aesthetics? Is your brand also? Yeah.
Yes, of course. Saris are the most, it's very graceful. If you really look at it, it's very comfortable. It solves all the problems. It also makes a woman look attractive, which women do want to look attractive, no matter how much they deny it. But
Mhm.
that's just simply who we are at surface level. So, and then it also is very graceful. So it also has the element of um, respectability,
Mhm.
and it just it's in my experience it's foolish to not introduce that in workspace as well. So we had made like 3 ready to wear saris for them, for our first collection. So it is also because we have this in mind that draping a sari also takes time. So we figured out a way to actually, just make a clip-on one, which is a sari, but it is quick to wear. Like you can just throw it on in 5 minutes and you're ready for office.
Mhm.
So that is there. Kurtas are also there. We have one kurta as well.
Mhm. Oh,
But
it's good because I personally am very associated with such brands, and I'm working with Isha people. Let us say, Sadhguru is giving a huge push to Indian crafts. Like Indian crafts have been lost very hugely during the British time.
yeah,
So giving a push to the Indian crafts and organic clothing is very much needed. Now it's the age of fast fashion. Jara and all these companies are polluting the planet like hell. They're, you have to buy 20 t-shirts and, all this kind of, it's all about volume nowadays.
yes.
But people, the transitioning to quality, I think it's, brands like yours and, it plays a very huge role where people should transition to that side of things. So when you speak about women, let's come to the interesting part of things that people would like to hear. Maybe your understanding of a woman. Like you have spoken about it in your YouTube videos and Instagram. So yeah, so what is it that you are trying to speak to women in terms of what आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हो उनसे generally में?
मैं तो कहना चाह रही हूँ कि you should drop all the ideas of whoever is trying to tell you what a woman should be, which would include all the marketing campaigns, all your celebrities, especially all your friends, your partners, etc. That also doesn't mean that you go full rogue and Kranti, because
Mhm.
we saw what happened with going full and rogue and Kranti with the feminist movement.
Exactly.
Uh, so whoever tried to understand a woman couldn't understand her ever, including women.
Mhm.
There is nothing to understand about a woman. If you
No.
really want to know what a woman is, and a woman, by a woman, what I mean is that what feminine is, because women are the pratik of femininity, not necessarily that they should be or they should have 100% feminine energy. Nobody's saying that. Nobody has actually. If you don't have a little bit masculine energy, you wouldn't be able to function in the world. So but the need of the hour is how I speak. So the need of the hour is that women should stop competing with men, because everything they do still, no matter how much uh, we have been drawn towards this illusion of you will be empowered if you act like a man, is their simple message in every single marketing campaign, in every single uh, publication, in every single company, in every single household now. Because if you were raised by feminist movement parents, then you would understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I just want women to, if you really think that you would be empowered by competing with a man, then there is something inside you which you already have convinced yourself that you're not empowered.
Mhm.
That is why you're fighting to be empowered.
But आजकल आप अगर देखोगे, it has been, I cannot say that women can go back to that state, but they are finding it very hard to go back to that because see, when it comes to financial freedoms and so many things,
Hmm.
women have acquired that trait of ambition, right? So, being ambitious like men,
Hmm.
like it is no
That's what
longer.
I'm saying. So why do we say being ambitious like a man? Let the man be ambitious. What is wrong in that as well?
Mhm.
If you want to be ambitious, why can't you be ambitious as a woman? Why do you have to acquire all the masculine traits first and then be ambitious? We should
Okay.
think about it. And yes, you're right. If you don't acquire all the masculine traits to be called as ambitious by the world around you, that is the correct way to put it.
Yeah.
You won't be called ambitious. So then you will start thinking that, okay, actually I'm not ambitious because everybody around me is saying that I'm not ambitious. If I'm being ambitious as a woman, what does it mean to be ambitious as a woman? Nobody knows, because
No,
we
people
haven't
cannot
explored
process
that.
it. People
We
cannot
haven't
process
explored that.
India. They will see something out of the box and it's out of the narrative that is dominant. So people
Yeah,
cannot see it. Yeah.
everybody's because everybody's too busy being politically correct. Even people who support things what I'm saying, people who support things like femininity and women should be more feminine, they're again driving them back to the old days where they were actually worst. Conditions for women were worst, right? So that is also not a solution. Also women who also people who are making women say that being sexually liberated is your liberation, being financially independent is your liberation. I'm not saying you shouldn't chase all these things in life. You should. What I'm saying is, are these things close to your nature as a woman? Are these things driving you closer to who you are as a woman, or are they taking you away from who you are as a woman? I really want people to think about it
But
before
do
they.
women understand feminism? Like, I think the feminism movement has completely made many women nuts. They are like, gone into complete different context itself. Feminism was for a different
As
purpose.
yes, see, logically speaking, many people do not know this, and I always speak about this first when I speak to people about feminism to avoid attacks on me.
Yeah.
But they still attack, so I can't do anything about it. Which is feminism movement started largely because they wanted more tax slaves. Nobody knows that. Otherwise, you think about it, why would a world where men were dominating, where men, it was a man's world, and it still is in a lot of ways. Women are just made to participate in a man's world, and
Mhm.
that is actually bringing them more suffering, in my opinion. So why
Mhm.
would a world where men had the upper hand and men were dominating, they would want to introduce women? Do you really think it is because they wanted to empower women? I mean, do really, are we going to believe that idea? And we can believe it, no problem. But then
Mhm.
you believe that, and then you see how your life ends up. I have spoken to a lot of women, and I have seen in my own life women who have subscribed to this feminist agenda and ideology. It is just a never ending loop of whatever they are
Exactly.
selling you, buy it.
Exactly.
Whether
No,
it's
it's like
product, whether it's a
it's like
thinking.
separating women completely from the uniting nature of men and women because people think
Exactly.
women are taking individual identity and they're thinking like they can stay as a woman separate from the entire masculine their entire life. So you cannot men cannot stay separate from the feminine, I think, and the feminine cannot also stay because it's all intertwined, right? We are existing in a world. So,
There
but
would
yeah, I
be no,
definitely understand
yeah,
that.
there would be no femininity without masculinity and vice versa. It's just how nature works, and people are very well aware about it. The idea of duality. So duality is how we exist. There is no question about femininity if there is no masculinity. There is no question about um, a woman if there is no man. If the earth only had women all over earth, if that was our condition of our
Where
species,
we go.
how would we how would we where would this idea of a man would arise from? Actually, where would the idea of a woman would arise from?
Yeah.
Imagine, similarly, if the world was filled with just men, where would the idea of women
Maybe we
arise
could
from?
call ourselves as a species, like, Sadhguru says, you are one species. So why are you dividing that also? Animals
Exactly.
do not divide themselves like into, but we
Actually,
are
people are not dividing. They are dividing, listening to people who want them to be divided.
politically
What I,
motivated. Yes, I
yes, that is
understand
what I
that.
speak mostly about. I
Mm-hmm.
have to, so many things I just hold back because I know if I go on speaking about things so
Exactly.
bluntly, because I am very blunt, uh, especially in my personal life. If you ask my friends and my family, they just say that you don't think before you say.
Mhm.
So if I go on speaking about things which I want to speak about, actually, they would just get me off all platforms.
Exactly. So no,
Actually,
I
shadow
got,
ban.
yeah, I heard that, you also got shadow banned. I also got shadow banned. So from platforms, I used to be absolute bold like Osho. Like Osho speaks, right? He will never care
Yeah.
about anything. He got banned from every nation in the world almost,
Yeah.
but he didn't care about. But yeah, there's a price to pay. So we have to play this game of pleasing and, going socially very well.
I don't
So
want to play that game only, is what I'm saying.
but yeah, in the long term, so I have toned down myself because understanding the consequences, I understand that. So I understand there is a social aspect to it. Why feminism, if we look at one kind of, okay, elites, see, there are many layers in the society, right? So but women are exploited in lower stratas of the society. That we can agree very grossly. They are being, exploited and tortured by men and people who do not have consciousness. They are doing all kinds of things with women, right? And that's where this movement comes in. But I see the movement taking now in the West, it has become into a completely different phenomenon itself. Like, if you see, there are 32 gender identities, bigender, trigender, polygender, LGBT, all kinds of
To
stuff.
tell people that any movement was not about empowering them, it was just to divide them even more. They are going on dividing people. Now
Yes,
they're dividing
exactly.
into genders. Then they'll divide their own genders even more. They'll just keep dividing people. They want
Exactly.
to divide, and because there is a thing called divide and rule, which still prevails. It was nothing.
Exactly. Even in Hindus and in India, like, Dravidia, Periyar,
Yeah.
atheists, then Dalits, and people will do Brahmins versus Dalits. So many kind of divisions. And,
Yeah.
there's no sense of, uh, I don't know why it is, but because for decades it has been unsolvable. People have been trying to solve this division, and I do not see a solution of, everyone
There's
coming together.
only one solution. People have to drop it. Drop
Exactly.
everything.
Exactly.
They do
So
sell, they do sell you that, they do sell you because they know how human psychology works. They know what human beings crave for the most, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of home, a sense of forever bliss, you know. You
Mhm.
anything anybody is doing is in hope for that. And that is what they very subliminally sell you.
Exactly. No,
And by
even I have faced so many discriminations in life. I won't make it a story of some tragedy or victimhood, but that's how most people make it. But I have seen, like, being into a certain family, certain caste, certain religion, people label you like that. Your name and everything comes like that, and people will see you like that. But then I see our younger generations. So this is where I'm coming to you towards the idea of, what's the solution of identity, because identity has become one of the top dominant issues in India, everywhere across the world. Identity is causing Russia Ukraine war, identity is causing people to migrate, identity is causing India completely turmoil. It's all saving identity, or it's about, destroying identity. There are two kinds of forces, right? So people who try to erase people's identity aggressively are looked at as enemies, which we say as the red supreme left or whatever. And people who try to preserve identity very, in a very hard oriented manner are considered as conservatives or right wing. But there has to be a balance, because obviously culture has a value, right? Preserving a culture has a value, but also sticking to that culture very hardly and not progressing also has its limitations. So where do you see all this? When I see that identity is the core of everything, and we ourselves are trying to give ourselves an identity throughout our lives. Most people are like that through our work, through our everything. It adds to our identity, even inside our heads. Okay, this is what kind of an individual I am, or this is what kind of a, identity I hold, and this is what people see me as, the mental image and the self-image that we have of ourselves, right? So that is, interiority is fine, but socially this plays out in a completely different manner. Socially, people are not concerned about the interiority. They will see as A versus B. It becomes like that. Now, obviously, there are forces, political forces who are acting on this. So, where do you see your role as an individual? How would you carry yourself? Like, given I figure out within me, how can I make it completely identityless or an universal identity? Now, I follow Osho and Sadhguru in many of the aspects. And Sadhguru talks about having a universal identity where you can embrace all identities. Because if we go, but Osho's way was completely different. He used to like destroy and discard all identities. And he would say, everyone will attack me. But I see both are uniting only. Sadhguru is saying embrace everything, Osho is saying discard everything. So
Yeah.
what are you inclined more towards? Because discarding everything is a very rebellious idea, which Osho obviously he had to face a lot of things from the world. So how do you see this whole identity thing?
See, when we were kids and we used to go to school,
Mhm.
whenever there was something that we did was which was right, we were given a certificate and we were praised by everybody, right? And we thought that to get praises from everybody and to get likes and to be liked, we need to collect certificates, we need to collect badges. Whenever in any unit test or in any viva, we used to get 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10. The teacher would give like a star on our fist, and then we used to come home and then we used to show our mom that, oh, I got this thing. And then my mom used to give me a treat. So then I learned that, to get treat and to be loved by my mother, I need to get a star on my hand. That's identity. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Any form of identity is that at its core. If you identify yourself with anything, you will do everything to protect it. You will do everything to chase it. You will do everything to, because you will think that it's your extension.
Mhm.
When in reality, it isn't. The star is going to be washed away after I take bath next day. Certificates are going to be dissolved in mud. They're made out of paper, they mean nothing. What mattered was what drove me towards having that identification was appreciation from people, was a sense of belonging, was the happiness. That is what people want. That is why they attach themselves to identities. What Osho is saying is to destroy all identities because he wants you to break free of this cycle. What Sadhguru is saying is to embrace all identities because he also wants you to just break out of all identities.
Mhm.
Both the ways lead to the same thing. It's just ways. It is,
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean that whenever somebody asks you, you say, I have no name, you know, because then people will think that whenever somebody's asking, what is your name? You say that I have no name, I have no identity, What are
No,
gonna
that
people do? They're gonna send you to a pagal khana. That's what they're gonna do.
so this is like good as a self internal concept because if you
Yeah,
see, I have heard that Elon Musk named his child into XA11156. This is his child's name in numericals
yeah,
because he's identified with maths and the intelligence in terms of science and tech. So his child name is that. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's something like that. I don't think there is a problem in it, but when people are exploited because of their identity, then there is a issue.
You will be
So
exploited. Always, if you attach yourself with something, you will be exploited for it. It just follows. These are the trails which follows anxiety, exploitation, taking advantage of, distrust, betrayal, everything will follow. It's a trail.
mhm,
All these are like things which are hidden in shadows. One day or the other, you'll discover this. If you attach yourself to any kind of identity, is what I have discovered. And because I have discovered this, I believe we are one human family. I believe there is right now people who are listening to this can discover that as well. It doesn't take any meditation practice, any this that, anything. It doesn't take anything. It just takes you to drop your sense of self.
exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I think we have spoken about almost many things that, uh, but yeah, coming to the end part of the conversation, I have also noticed that, you spoke on narcissism. Now, this is one topic which is, I have listened to many psychologists, including Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, or Jordan Peterson. I have read some of their books. I'll not say I'm very well read, but this concept of narcissism, or, the personality, the science of human personality, what kind of personality we intake in the process of, our surroundings, our family, our friends, all of this stuff. So how do you see? Because I have also seen that, I recently came to know about, there are so many different kinds of narcissism, right? 8 to 9 kinds of narcissism. There could be an intellectual narcissist, there could be a, general narcissist, there could be spiritual narcissism, so many different kinds of narcissism. So, how do you see this, like, this narcissism in the society? Because I have seen that, I myself has experienced it, and I have been prone to that, but all of us somehow tend to that. I have seen that you have spoken that we have that kind of traits occasionally we encounter within ourselves also. It's not that everyone is free of it or something like that, but how to reduce the imprint of narcissism, and what do you think about, human psychology in that aspect? Like, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
See, psychologically speaking, and only psychologists can speak psychologically, so I can't, can't speak psychologically because I haven't studied psychology.
Uh-huh.
But I have experienced narcissism myself. I was a narcissist, you know.
Mhm.
I have seen narcissists. I believe every single person has a narcissist in them. It's just
Mhm.
undiscovered. Why? Because if you really study narcissism, how Freud has studied, how Peterson has studied, they all come to the conclusion that narcissist is always looking for something, and their looking comes from a sense of void inside them that they have to deliberately fill, and that leads them to exploit the other person even if they don't want to.
Mhm.
And generally they don't want to, because then human conscience comes into play, which even they have.
Mhm.
So they feel guilty about it, and and then it comes to feeling that guilt, and it's an endless cycle. They do activities to fill that guilt, and that activity generates more guilt. So that's a cycle of breeding the narcissism. We must break out of this cycle. Otherwise, it's just going to destroy, it's going to take you away from your true nature. That's what happens with narcissists. Narcissists are looking for love, generally speaking,
Mhm.
and a form of love which often is safety is what they're looking for. They want safety in all forms because that was not given to them maybe in childhood. That's where most of our psychological problems or blessings come from, our childhood. So even psychologists come to this conclusion ultimately, that a child must be raised properly for
Exactly.
a good life.
Yeah.
Narcissism also breeds from there. People who are
Mhm.
narcissists are generally kept on a hanging spree
Yeah.
of
On a moral high ground,
limited
of
supply of love, or either they don't have love at all,
Mhm.
or they are given so much love which comes out of an expectation from them. It is not love, then it is a transaction. So we all have been these are the two spectrums now, love and hate, and in this spectrum we all have experienced, range of things. Every single range of experience, if it is not generated from love, is going to breed a little narcissist in you. It's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I believe if we really want to solve this problem of narcissism, identifying the ego would help a lot.
Mhm.
Because it's ego which drives you to fill that void of narcissist, because your ego convinces you of you're not worthy of love. You didn't had love. You must hate this person because he has done this thing to you. This is all chatter of the ego in various forms.
Mhm. So when you say about the ego, like, uh, we being content creators, right? Content creators, like not as of we, but millions of youths. This is one danger that we are seeing in the society, like, people making reels, shorts, and all of this. Even I do that, but there is this very thin
But
line
I do
of,
that.
yeah. So, like, this self-importance, it can, engross us sometimes. So this self-importance is narcissism, right? So how one stays, distance from that most of the time, because I have noticed myself, I'm also looking for, okay, what people are saying, okay, now that is okay. This is practical. I want to see how much engagement is happening. Is my post gone well? If people are receiving well, that is one thing. But then there is another sense which I have seen my sisters doing it. I have seen my friends doing it, constantly checking their social media and getting completely engrossed into this idea of a digital self, right? And we are building it for a purpose. Definitely we want to impact people. We want people to transform their lives. We want people to receive us well. And it could be a very, wonderful, graceful exchange of, communication. But then over a period of time, when you stay for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I have seen that, I don't know, maybe in the initial stages or later stages, but this is what I see, the youth are not able to differentiate. I'll not take much of your time, but this is like, just this thing that, how do you see, like, people who are at 18 years, 19 years now, even statistics says, like, in US, TikTok is, people want to be a TikTok influencer, not an astronaut. It has become like that. So in India, reels are, people are not exploring, bigger ways of establishing things for the nation. Now you are starting a company, but youth are looking for getting more views. That has become the, psyche of, innocent, this 19-year-old, 21, 22 years. There is nothing wrong in that, but then they are very oblivion, like, ignorant to the society. They will think the older generation is all bullshit and all the culture is bullshit, everything, and our world is the only world we have. This digital world is the supreme world, right? So how do you, what kind of an advice would you give to the youth based on your, observation, that, what kind of a balance, because I see you are pretty well balanced in terms of all the aspects. You are carrying a certain kind of,
I'm the
balance.
worst balanced person ever, if you ask me.
Don't know that, but yeah. So at least socially well balanced. How it, we use the term social branding, so it's very well balanced there. So how would you say, what would you say to, people within that age group, 18 to 25, or those who are, yeah.
See, it's the same thing that if you, Sadhguru gives this example, if you use a scissor to try to stitch a cloth, you're never going to be succeed. You're never going to find success. You have to use a sui dhaga for that. So it's the same thing with people who are using social media hyper extensively, which is most people. Uh, I heard my mother also the other day talking about reels, which I've never heard her talk about reels, because she's a Ram devotee and she chose the bhakti marg for her liberation. So she's very interested in that. But I saw her speaking about her friends making reels and everything. And these are our 50-year-olds I'm talking about. So nobody has escaped this now.
Mhm.
So that made me think that the tool which you're using, your intention to use it makes every single difference. Even Osho uses social media. Sadhguru also uses social media, you know, but their intent to use is different. That itself makes a lot of difference. Most people are making reels, are doing these things for validation. women are the biggest driving forces for all these social media platforms. And I have no shame to say it because it is very obvious. I don't know
Yes.
why people don't want to mention it.
Yeah.
For what? Why don't we mention the obvious? We run away from it. And then some companies take advantage of it and sell us things, you know, it's the same cycle. So it is people come on these platforms. First, they initially, when all this started, they used to come for escaping their lives. They used to find an escape online. Initial days of the internet, they used to find friends they can connect with, they can talk to, which were not available in their immediate environments. Now, then social media came, so that extended to photography and videography, etc. But you have to understand that if somebody is taking a picture, then there is a muse in front, right? That is what social media companies studied, the muse. And
Mhm.
that's how we have all these things. Because people, especially women, they like vanity. And I'm not talking about true nature of a woman. That is very different. I'm talking about the skin layer, the top layer, the immature woman, which are most women these days, which are most women these days. They look for vanity, and social media gives them instant vanity, instant gratification.
Exactly. Immediate gratification.
Instantly you get likes. If you're upset today, your mother told you that you are a blah 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 person, or your father told you something, or your friends told you something, you'll go on social media, you'll cry about it, you'll vain about it, very subliminally you'll post stories, and you'll post whatever, and you'll gain validation from people.
Exactly.
This is how it is running. And this is just one aspect of how it is running. There are so many. It is a humongous circus. It's a huge circus. There are news channels into it, there are corporations, and there are ad agencies, there are so many things.
Exactly.
So many things. It's a
News
jumble, it's a
channels.
mess,
Yeah,
you know.
talking of news channels, they are the ones, we'll go into it maybe someday later, but they are the ones with, like, destroying the psyche through sensationalism most of the time. They're not even allowing people to think deeply. I have seen YouTubers who are doing very well in terms of making people think,
Yeah.
but media channels who are having huge resources, they're, producing such cheap quality content, and,
They're just
they're
bothered about, see, they know that current state of human beings is that they are more attracted towards negative bias. And that is their driving, that's their whole dharana, the whole basis of how news companies run. So even it comes down to each and every single word that they pick, every single wording, every single sentence, how they create the sentence also comes from that.
exactly.
Sometimes there is not even, there's no need to mention religion of the man who murdered somebody else, but they would do it to,
Yeah.
to
So there's a lot of
instigate,
politics in that.
so how, otherwise how will people comment? Because people are like, every day people are murdered and people are killed. It's okay, I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but this is the reality of our world. People are killed every day. There are murderers roaming around the streets, right? There is always a
Yes,
risk.
yes, exactly.
So the news channels have made it a point to get the TRP and and it's still the same. Get everything. Now Women's Day is coming. So
Mhm.
you'll see everybody capitalizing on that. Every single thing has become capitalist. This is made a culture now. This is made an obviousness of life now. And this is very alarming if we think about future of humanity. If we make
Exactly.
every single thing into a
Profit
culture of
oriented.
consumerism. It is
Yeah,
a culture now. It is a culture which every single powerful organization in the world is breeding into. They want this culture,
exactly.
which has
So,
never been the case in human history to this extent. There has been the case. All the religions were doing the same thing. We were just going to temples instead of Zara, you know?
right now, Microsoft and Google and all this have become the religion. They are having our data and they are penetrating and they know our user behaviors.
Yeah,
So
because you know what we think, we think that this is the narcissist culture that I was talking about, which is we think that we are so smart that we don't go to temples, and that we don't believe in, we are atheists, and we don't
exactly,
believe there is a god, etc. But that longing for finding who you are and finding your true nature and actually finding Paramatma, which Osho talks about, right, has not gone anywhere. The temples have become Zara.
exactly.
Go to Zara instead
Shopping
of going to
malls, yeah,
temple.
shopping malls
You
have
go to
become the
your,
temple now.
yeah, you go to some, Pandit you used to go to. Now you go to your what do you say, these coaches online who talks
Exactly.
about, random spirituality. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Even meditation has become some kind of a, see, there are different, there is a people who are doing genuine spirituality, but then there are people who are making spirituality as narcissism. I have seen meditation has become a branding now,
Yeah.
even that is there. So going to a temple and just being connecting to someone is connecting to some deity, someone is connecting to a non-objectified form, someone is meditating across the river. There, these are, but meditating across the river or meditating in a pub would be more cool than meditating in a temple. This has become the thing because if
Even if you do that, but
yeah,
do it. At least do
exactly,
it. Whether you're meditating in a pub, or you're meditating across the river, or you're meditating while riding a bicycle, or you're meditating when you're sitting in a few people's company or listening to them, enjoying music, do it. At least try to drop into that state.
exactly, exactly,
That is where all the answers are.
exactly. So I think meditation is the only answer. See, I had to make this podcast into all these words and all, but we somehow we know that that's the answer. When you
It is,
just shut
it
up
is
and
because
close
we
your
are
eyes.
considerate about people who are listening to this, because
Exactly.
it needs to make sense to them. Osho
Exactly.
and even Sadhguru and Krishna and all the enlightened beings who have walked this earth say the same thing. They say only one thing. They say, drop it and you'll have God.
Exactly.
Drop yourself, remove yourself. You yourself are standing between you and God. Now, the way of saying it makes all the difference, because a cobbler would listen to it in a different way than a businessman, than a woman, you know, than a prostitute. It would be very different for everybody.
Exactly.
Right? So these gurus, they know this. That is where their creativity comes from. That the creativity thing that I was talking about. The truth is only one. The way of saying it is, can be 8 billion people, 8 billion way of,
Exactly.
meditating, saying the truth.
Yeah. So I think that's it. You see, like meditation, I don't know what meditation means even now, even though I have been doing 3, 4 years. It is a quality, definitely I know, but every individual has a different way of meditating. Someone would draw and meditate, someone would sing and meditate, someone would sit silently. But I think this is what those who are watching the podcast, and hopefully, if any youth in the age of like 18 to 25, or at a very young age, they are trying to reshape their lives. Not there is no fixed method, but a quality of meditativeness. As Osho would add it, no, that he'd not say meditation, he'd say be religiousness or godliness or meditativeness, bring a quality. So I think you summarize it in a very well manner, because all these words are just to clear the mind of the Mark and all these things. So yeah, so anything you would like to say as a closing remarks about what you are, anything, I would just keep it to you, like anything free flowing that you would like to share with those who are watching from my audience as well as yeah.
I would just say that for the first time in, human history, uh, the young generation, us, you know, we have this sort of unlimited access to feeding our mind, feeding the intellect. Some people, which is most people, are stuck in feeding that. They think that is going to make them sound more intellectually powerful. They're gonna be more they're gonna be liked by more people. It'll attach meaning to their lives, etc., because they know everything. you know. And then also there is another possibility, which is to identify this loop, to become an observer of this loop, that this is actually never ending. This is my mind trying to enlarge its ego more and more and more and more and become, the king, you know. So obviously this is not something which is of permanence, because what if from tomorrow all the servers are crashed, because we don't know mother nature, what is she going to do, and all the information is wiped out from the internet, what then, you know. So that should, there are two possibilities. One, people just being, in this never ending loop of information, and then, then all the things come with it of like making reels, selling yourself to corporations, etc., all this. And then the other side could be people actually for the first time realizing that their mind has no stopping, and there is them who can bring it to rest, and then actually come to their own true nature, which Buddha talked about, which Osho talks about, which Krishna talks about, you know, Mahavir, he talks about,
Yeah,
Sadhguru, he talks about. So there are no tool is bad if you know how to use it.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
So thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure, like, I have not been able to do justice to what all you are doing just through
no,
this
no.
small
Thank you so
podcast.
much for having me. Don't say that. This,
This is just a, like, 1 hour podcast, but we try to uh, bring out some value for the people who are watching this. And yeah, that's it.
if
So
people
I
are more
love.
confused after listening to this, then I think we were successful.
It would be like, we have ended it into no conclusion state, but
Yeah.
there is no conclusion essential.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think, uh, we are trying to, see things in a more clear way. That's the only thing that matters. We are trying to see things with clarity. Even after this conversation, I am more aware of who you are as a person, what are your thoughts, and people who would be listening, they would be aware of what kind of exchange we had. So that's it. It's just a small step towards clarity. And yeah, thank you for joining the podcast, and thank you for will yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.